Hello there, my darling dragon friends. Welcome. My name is Ariel. I am the Sassy Dragon, and today we are going to be talking about one of the most famous legendary fragrances of all time, and that, of course, would be Chanel No. 5 from Chanel, the Eau de Parfum. I finally got a hold of a little sample of this because I do not own a full-size bottle of it. And I am going to do my best to do justice to this. I'm sure there are tons of other videos that probably are a little bit more informative, get into even the deeper history of this fragrance. But I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it as somebody who is smelling it, and we're going to take a whiff of this, and I'm going to give you kind of my breakdown. I also did spray this on my arm earlier so that I could kind of let the dry down happen so I could see how it sort of morphed. And I can barely smell it on my arm now. Just a teeny tiny little bit, and it's been maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours since I put it on, and usually things that I spray on my arm disappear a lot faster than if I put it like behind my ears or somewhere like that. It lasts a lot longer. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray a little bit more of this on my arm so we can get it, and then we are going to start talking about the fragrance. I'm going to read you some of the notes from the Fragrantica.com site. So this got an interesting history, obviously. This was originally formulated in 1921, so it is over 100 years old, which is really fascinating. The original perfumer's name was Earnest Beaux, and he was a French-Russian perfumer, and that's who Coco Chanel got to create this fragrance for her. The number 5 comes from her favorite number being number 5. It was something that, you know, was in her history, in her life quite a bit. She was a Leo, which is the 5th sign of the zodiac. So she, you know, always had this thing about number 5 was her lucky number. I was just reading a few things, and one of the things that jumped out to me was she would release a lot of her fashion designs and runway items like on May the 5th, the 5th month on the 5th day, so I think it's very interesting too. So this has been reformulated, obviously, over the years, and the current iteration that we have is based more, apparently, on the 1986 re-release of this fragrance by the in-house perfumer Jacques Polge, who was with Chanel for a very long time and retired in 2015. So I do love the way this smells. This is a very polarizing fragrance. Some people absolutely love it. Some people hate it. The top notes in this fragrance are the aldehydes. The aldehydes are such an important and integral part of Chanel No. 5, and I will get a little bit deeper into that because the science and detail behind the way aldehydes are formed is very interesting to me. So the aldehydes are there, and in the top we have Lang Lang, Neroli, Bergamot, and Peach. So you definitely get a very, it's sort of, it's rich to me, like it has a richness to it in the top. It's definitely what I'd call perfumey, but it has that fresh yet slightly spicy, slightly warm ambery kind of feeling to me. All together with the florals, the middle notes to me, you know, I'll tell you what I think is the strongest. The mid notes are iris, jasmine, rose, and lily of the valley. For my skin chemistry, the jasmine jumps out the most. And to me, this is the kind of jasmine that for some people, it's going to border really close on that edge of when you get that kind of smelly sort of, you know, jasmine that's almost a little stinky. When I was a kid, I remember people always saying, jasmine smells so good. And then when I smelled like it was some kind of jasmine perfume, I don't remember what it was, but I was like, ugh, that does not smell that good. And then, of course, I realized there's a lot of different kinds of jasmines. And this one, to me, is, it borders right on that line between that smellier jasmine and, like, the fresher, more, you know, what you smell from the plant, which to me is a lot prettier, right? A lot more pleasant. You know, it has almost that sort of waxy, like been out in the sun a long, long time kind of smell. So some people are really going to enjoy that and some people really are not. I think it's just fine. Like that, I don't love or hate the jasmine note in this. And I will say that as it dries down on me, that kind of melts into the rest of the blend. There is definitely a powderiness about this, but it's not in a baby powder sort of way. It definitely has that vintage glamour feeling, like you feel like this is the scent of like dusting powder or old cosmetic face powder. So it has that very, you know, old Hollywood glamour feeling about it. The base notes are definitely where we're getting some of that woodsier spice. Sandalwood, oak moss, vanilla, patchouli, and vetiver. The vanillas in Chanel perfumes to me are always kind of dry. They're not sweet, they're not cupcakey or foodie at all. So if anyone is seeing, you know, if somebody sees that and thinks it's going to be sweet, no, it's not. And I think that's sort of what makes this perfume stand out today, especially still, is that so many of our fragrances, our newer scents that are coming out, are very sweet, they're very gourmand, they're very like sugar rush, and I can't knock them because I do love a lot of those sweet scents. I do love my vanillas, I do love all that stuff, but I really enjoy a variety, and so that's why I think this one still remains unique. It still has that spot in perfumery, and that's a big reason why it has lasted such a long test of time, and it still sells very well because, you know, in spite of all the coming trends and changes, ups and downs, there's something very classic about this one. There is a thing about this being called old lady-ish. You know, people are going to always hear that sort of thing about it. And I, growing up, did not really smell this on a lot of older women, so I never really developed an association between this fragrance and older people. But it would make sense that people would associate it with older people because this fragrance has been around over 100 years. And, you know, it's one of those things that, of course, it's going to get associated with a different time in history because there are women who, even in their early 20s, were wearing this fragrance all through their life. And so by the time grandma is still dabbing on her Chanel No. 5 and the kids are going, oh, that's what an old lady smells like. I personally cannot stand calling perfumes old lady perfumes. I think it's ageist. I think it's just demeaning. I think it's one thing to say it's a vintage scent. It's one thing to associate it with an older era. But to call it old lady in like a negative way, I think is really just kind of mean-spirited, but that's just my opinion on it. It's just kind of like, it's an old lady. It's like, well, I always have said if my grandma had smelled like Chanel No. 5, she would have been the classiest grandma in the world. But my grandma smelled more like cat hair and cigarettes, so, and coffee, right? She did not smell like Chanel No. 5. So I have a wonderful friend who runs a Chinese restaurant. She's run it since the 70s, and she's an older Asian lady, and she is in her early 70s, and she always wears Chanel No. 5. And I'll tell you, every time I go in there, I always give her a hug because I've known her for years and she smells so good. And sometimes I kind of forget and I'm like, oh, what are you wearing? She's like, oh, you know, it's always Chanel No. 5. And I was like, yes, it smells so good on her. And it's so much her vibe because she's very elegant. She always dresses nice. She's like this very gracious hostess. She's just like the ultimate hostess. And it just suits her perfectly. So I think this is a kind of fragrance that suits that sort of classic, slightly glamorous, chic, elegant, timeless sort of vibe. And I know there's going to be a lot of people probably watching and in the comments that let me know that this fragrance has changed a lot over time. So I unfortunately have not smelled the previous iterations of this scent because I simply did not have them, didn't have a particular interest in the perfume at the time when I was younger. It just, I was, you know, I wasn't even that like, you know, this is something that has gradually shaped over time my interest in fragrance and getting deeper into it. But when I was younger, I wasn't really like into pulling apart all the notes. I just knew I liked perfume, right? This definitely has that soapy quality, right, that comes about, I think, as a result of all the fragrances and all the, it's all of those floral notes coming together. It definitely has that. So something I was going to read for you guys. I know this video is a little bit longer than my usuals, but I figure it's a classy fragrance, been around a long time, so we should do it justice, right? So aldehydes, this, according to Google, are synthetic fragrance compounds that add a bright, fresh, sometimes soapy or floral note to perfumes, often used to create clean, sparkling, sophisticated scent profiles. They're organic compounds with a carbonyl structure, CHO, that are widely used in perfumery to create a variety of scent profiles. So yeah, you see it definitely talking about it having a lot of different molecules, and there's a way that I can't remember, I was reading another article that talked about how that was made, and it was really fascinating. If you're into the science and the chemistry of it, definitely you can Google search that, like how aldehydes are created. It's very interesting. I may put some links below, so for those of you that want to read about it can get deeper into it, as well as the Wikipedia entry. I read all about that, about, you know, about the history of the fragrance. It was really cool to read about. So anyway, that is definitely where we're seeing that. And again, it's kind of funny. It says moderation is key. Some people are allergic to aldehydes. They can't not wear them. So I would say yes. For me, Chanel No. 5 is a beautiful, definitely classic smelling fragrance that I think anybody could wear, which I always say anybody can wear any fragrance, because the only rule in perfume is that you love it and it makes you feel great. So I think this is a beautiful, kind of genderless fragrance. It has stood the test of time. It has a very beautiful aromatic mystique about it, because it does blend those florals, those woodsy notes, a little bit of the fruity top notes with the bergamot. It keeps it a little sparkly, a little fresh. It's powdery, but not in a baby powder sort of way at all. It's powdery in a very glamorous kind of way. This is definitely a perfume that's been associated with many famous people, including Marilyn Monroe, of course, over the years. They always, you know, really get a lot of, like, always famous actresses or, you know, people that are in the spotlight to be the face of Chanel. You know, they cycle through them, but it's always one of those things. They've obviously, I think, done an incredible marketing campaign with this perfume as well, which also helps to keep it fresh and relevant, even with a newer crowd. I honestly think very few people would smell this on someone and not think it smells at least pleasant. It unless you just douse yourself in this, because even on my arm it lasts a pretty good amount of time. So even with the changes to formulation, which I'm sure have made the concentration weaker over time, because that definitely seems to be the trend. You can tell me more in the comments, because there's people out there that are going to know so much more about this perfume and have had such a longer history with it than I have. So definitely tell me what you think about it, what your experience with it is. If you hate it, I'm sorry. I know this is, again, to me, this is a polarizing fragrance. I've read comments and some people are like, this is the best timeless fragrance ever, all the way to this is the worst thing I've ever smelled. So there's definitely a lot of opinions on it. I'm in the camp of, I don't know if I would make this my signature. No, I don't think so. But it definitely, to me, conjures up that bygone era, that 1940s, 1950s. It really feels like Hollywood glamour to me. The old, you know, like just that classic feeling. It really has. It's a little, that's a big reason I love older perfumes, is because it's like capturing a little bit of time in a bottle. And it's really cool. Even with the reformulations, even with the changes, I think we've still retained some of the basic essences of it, which is really lovely. I wish I could smell older versions of it. I'm sure it was absolutely phenomenal in its longevity. To me, this is a fragrance that should probably be sprayed a little bit lighter. I think it would really be incredible in the winter, but I could see this working really at any season as long as you don't go overboard with it. Like, I could say everybody's chemistry is different, because like some people's chemistry, perfume will just disappear on them very quickly. That's something I've actually had a lot of challenge with Chanel fragrances, is most of them disappear on my skin really fast. This one does not go away as quickly, but like Chanel Allure, which I love, love the smell of that, but it disappears on me so quick. The one that lasts the best for my chemistry is the Coco Mademoiselle Intense, and I do love the scent of that, but if you don't like patchouli, you will not like that one. The Coco Noir lasts decently on me, but this one I would say is probably a moderate longevity for me. The sillage is probably decent as well, but I do think that on me, most Chanels don't last as long. Let me know how it lasts for you. Let me know if you love this one or not. And as always, if there's fragrances you would like me to review in the future, please do let me know. And if there's something fascinating about this perfume that you would like to share, please do that as well, because that's the point of my perfume reviews. We are all learning new stuff together, and y'all always give me bits of info that don't even exist on the internet that I absolutely love to hear. So I will talk to y'all very soon. Mwah! Take care.